Um, Let me sort of pause at this point, and I want to kind of backtrack just a bit and summarize, make sure that we're all on the same page here. You mentioned just a minute ago that in your observation, the virus, as we understand it today, is a natural occurrence. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that seems to me to be juxtaposed with something that might be engineered. And that sort of, I think, debunks one of the popular political talking points that's been going on in some circles about how the COVID virus was this engineered creation that was intended to be used by some nefarious party somewhere as a biological weapon. You're saying, if I understand correctly, that simply does not match up with the observation that you're making, correct?
That's correct. This is all signs point to this being natural. This does not seem engineered at all. There's nothing about its genome that says that it was modified by humans. And these things happen. SARS-1 is a very similar transition that happened naturally. MERS is a very similar transition that happened naturally. People have been studying coronaviruses specifically in this region of China as well, because they were afraid that something like this would happen. It's well known that coronaviruses have the ability to jump between species easily. And so people have been monitoring them. They have been sequencing their RNA. They have been comparing different features of the virus. And speaking of conspiracy theories and research and where did this virus come from and how are politics affecting virus research and our ability to stop the next pandemic. So there's all these conspiracy theories about the virus coming from a lab in Wuhan. There is a group of scientists that have been for a decade now at least. They're called EcoHealth Alliance. That's the group. They're based in New York. But they have been asking the right kinds of questions for how to predict where the next pandemic will happen, what virus will cause the next pandemic, in order to stop that from happening. And so these researchers were actually in Wuhan and working with the Wuhan Institute, and were collecting coronavirus samples because they thought coronaviruses were ones that were likely to shift into humans and cause really bad effects. That's just based on seeing SARS-1 and MERS, and they were also concerned about China because of these wet markets and the high density of people in China and the close interaction between a lot of people and bats and pangolins and these kinds of organisms. And so they just thought that this was a place that was sort of most on the edge of a pandemic occurring or starting there. And so, they were obviously right. But since they're collaborating with a lab in Wuhan, and President Trump was asked a question about the NSF funding research in Wuhan on viruses, the NSF cut EcoHealth Alliance's funding. And so this is a direct line from, this conspiracy theory that Trump bought into that now is cutting funding to an organization that I think is asking the right questions in order to stop the next COVID-19, stop the COVID-20, COVID-21, whatever. And so it is really troubling. It is so troubling that I think 70 some Nobel laureates wrote a letter condemning the NIH for doing this and for cutting the funding. And there were 30 some scientific organizations that also wrote a very similar letter after that first letter came out. And so this is a huge problem. And it's based on fiction and it's based on conspiracy theories. It's shaping what we research and it's augmenting our ability to stop future pandemics.